Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We just got done listening to a track that sparks joy for some people, and we're going to be diving into a special selection right now. Today's special selection comes at us from Damien. It says, "Hey Bryan, I'm back. Considering your very rough ride with Boredom's Circle, I've decided to tone things down a little and give you something a bit more conventional, but for one last time we'll explore what Japan has to offer. I'd like you to check out Boris and their song called Flood. Boris are many things. Throughout their almost 30-year-long career, this Japanese rock outfit covered sounds categorized by genres like drone metal, post-metal, sludge metal, hardcore punk, thrash, stoner, shoegaze, etc. All in all, they're a pretty outgoing group. This song, though, I consider to be a post-rock masterpiece. It's a concept song on a titular flood and its progress from calm through destruction and to post-cataclysm relief. It's beautiful and crushing. I'd also greatly recommend listening along with the lyrics popped up. They only appear briefly later into the song, but the lyricism is very important to capture the concept behind this composition. Also, the song was originally 70 minutes in length and it released as a studio album. For live performances, though, they've shortened it into almost half of its original runtime. Now, the song is over 30 minutes long, which has been a hard cap for the special selections. So, I have spoken with Damien and we've chosen to omit the opening because it is mostly just noise, but I'm going to back it up about 10 or 15 seconds so that we can still have a part of that noise intro before moving into this first section. Alright, let's dive into Boris. So we're in a very slow 6/8 right here. We have a accented cymbal on beat 1, and yeah, the snare hit on beat 4 sounds like an open snare. And I've mentioned before how 6 pulses always feel very flowy to me, and I think that works very well here for this idea of a flood of water. The levity of it also helps to tie into this sort of flowing idea of the 6/8. I don't know how long we're gonna sit in this pre-flooding beauty, serenity, but I greatly appreciate the band's patience. My brain would already have told me to, move on to the next idea by this point. If I were writing this story musically. Very interesting having that slight delay on that tone. I don't know what instrument that is. It sounds like a violin with a real light attack to it. The notes just kind of fade in, but it would have to have a lot of modulation on it. Like, it kind of sounds like a violin, but not. So it might be digital too. I don't know. One of the first moments of stronger melody. And it's a 1-bar phrase looped. Oh, okay, here we go. I do like the placement of this idea, though. We have that clean guitar pushed to the left, kind of doing this eighth note idea. We have that strong chordal strike in the right side, and then something a little closer to the center is where we have this repeated idea. There's a lot of textures going on too, with the different guitars having different tones and timbres to them. Different types of effects and layers. Yeah, we have some interesting ideas of counterpoint right here. Also with the two melodies lining up a little bit, but we are seeing a bit more of the contrasting elements arriving as well. Taking away some of that serene beauty and injecting ideas of dissonance. It's really interesting. Every once in a while I'll slip into a 4/4, not really notice it until we get a downbeat on a 3, and it throws me off for a second. I'm like, oh yeah, we're in 6/8. What am I doing? I'm interested if this is jam style composition, or if each note is meticulously placed and played. Maybe they use sheet music for 30 minutes worth of music when they're playing live. Yeah, very cool using these two melody lines right here. Kind of weaving in and out of being counter melody and harmony. like this vocal style. At least in pertinence to the themes of the music. It's distant, it's apathetic, it's not providing any emotion about said flood, it's simply talking about the events that happened. Almost in a disconnected way. Like an onlooker, or possibly even maybe even the flood itself. Shifted the floor for this, but jeez, man. I do like how they didn't put as much distortion on the lead guitar, so it can kind of cut through the wall of sound noise thing that's going on and provide this melody line. Interesting idea right there. This part is so huge, especially compared to what came prior, which is just elevating it to the next level. Is that a bass guitar just filling in that lower end? Golly, what a fat bass tone. That sounds monstrous. It's interesting because it's going for a wall of sound idea, but everything is still fairly identifiable. I think sometime we also shifted to a 9/4 idea. There's also a real loose feeling as far as time goes, and the way that the band's syncopated with each other, or no, in sync with each other, not synchronized. Almost like it's two bars of 4/4 and then a bar of 1/4 that is just a bit of a slower tempo. Right there, the finalization of that that final note hits on a splash cymbal, I think, and they were just slightly out of sync with each other, and it's caused this entire section to have little elements like that make it feel like it's falling apart. I think in the bass we just had a little bit of a swung eighth note. Like, there is a loose sense of time here. do like this idea of the flood slowing down. It's obviously on its way out. The worst is past, but the danger's still present. There's also something making thunderous sounds. It actually might be that bass, I think it is. It is insane how little decay there is on that lower guitar. It might be the bass one. That note just does not get any quieter, any lighter. Yeah, that's clean. Almost feels nightmarish, like reliving the flood. This whole section is just super haunting. I mean, I guess we're kind of working towards it. Is it over? I guess we're not working towards anything. It's over. I was thinking that this is not the post cataclysmic serenity I was expecting. It's very. Oh. It's very haunting, terrifying. Like I mentioned, it to me it feels like reliving a nightmare, more so than the aftermath, the direct aftermath of a flood. I don't know if I have a lot to say, which is typically what I say before I do say a lot of things. As people have pointed out in the past, always makes for funny comments. Um, this is a song that I don't think needs much explanation, but there are some things I want to point out, and I'll get to them. I'll get to them. But it's very much a song that is felt rather than explained. It would be what I consider performance art, actually. This is not something that I would want to sit down and listen to all the time. I would probably not even want to listen to another pre-recorded version of it. Again, this is something that I would certainly go see live. I might even see this live a few times, but I'm not sure how many times I would sit down and listen to a pre-recorded version of it, studio or a pre-recorded live. It is something to experience, something to be felt. I don't necessarily, like I said, to me, it's not something that I would just sit down and listen to. However, this is also not my typical genre. I'm sure Damien, who calls this a post rock masterpiece, probably enjoys this type of music and could just turn this on and turn the lights out and chill, and just fall into the atmospheres that Boris is creating. For me, though, this is an art, a work of art, something to experience a couple of times in a lifetime, but not necessarily something to just casually listen to. It's something that evokes thought, evokes emotion, and is uh, just it does what it does extremely well. Um, okay, so yeah, let's dive into some of this. So I'd say the song is mostly broken up into two moments. There's also the post cataclysmic ending, but for a 30-minute song, oh, there's also the intro, the noise intro. But for a 30-minute song, 36-minute song in total, 90% of that is before the storm and during the storm, or the flood, before the flood and during the flood. The after the flood section and the noisy intro take up so little time compared to those other two main sections. And I think those are the two that I really want to talk about the most. Um, and I'm probably going to end this with a lot of questions because this intrigues me. Like I said, I kind of see it as performance art more than, well, obviously more than consumer music, but it as with any good works of art, I tend to walk away with more questions than understanding. And I think that's the sign of good art, at least in my mind, is stuff that I don't necessarily get immediately. If I walk away from a piece fully understanding what it is and what it's doing the first time I've seen it or heard it, I'm typically left a bit disappointed. However, I guess on the flip side, that would mean that it was an effective work of art. It portrayed its message clearly and cleanly. Uh, and I guess on one hand, that might be a detriment. It might mean that it's not artistic enough and maybe too much of the message. But I guess it's, you know what? It's all up in the air. The more I talk about this, the more I realize that I was probably wrong in my original statement. All right, so let's dive into Boris. We're done talking about art theory here. Let's dive into Boris's Flood. The song starts off with like 4 or 5 minutes of noise. This is one thing I have a question of. Why? What is the flood? I mean, what is the noise? I understand the pre-flood moment. I understand during the flood. I understand post-flood. I don't understand the noise. And I listened to a bit of it before I recorded this video, just because I was curious. Is it really just 6 minutes of noise? And yeah, it really is. That's a 20-second or so snippet that I included at the beginning of this just to get a taste of it and to hear it against everything else instead of rather just skipping that entire moment. That's pretty much the whole intro. And it's interesting. I think it sets a stage as far as foreshadowing goes. But in the narrative, I'm not sure what it personifies or what it's musically capturing in this story. I also, as you could probably guess, I'm not a fan of it. Stuff like that needs to have extreme artistic purpose for me to appreciate. Well, not for me to enjoy it. I appreciate it. There is definitely skill in creating that kind of sound between all the tones that you need, or all the effects you need to put on the guitar to achieve the specific sound, so that it doesn't just sound tinny. Because I believe the whole intro is a single guitar, so you need the width, you need the power, you really need it to fill the space, while still just being one instrument with a few strings and trying to create this wall of sound idea. So yeah, there's an art to it, and I appreciate that. But as far as its placement in the song, I don't get it. And I wasn't quite a fan of the sound itself. Now, that stops abruptly to bring in the first section with a proper time signature. We get a 6/8. We start off with a single guitar, clean electric guitar, I think, with the drums. And if I remember correctly, it was something like cymbals on 1 and a snare hit on 4, and that was our 6/8. We got the 2 3 4 5 6 2 3 5 6, something like that. And we had the guitar just kind of holding out these notes, really setting the floor, the stage for everything else that was going to be built on top of it. And was there some stuff built on top of it? I have never heard a 15-20 minute slow burn before. That was wild. And the thing is that the first section, the drum and guitar, versus what we saw in the final moment of this slow burn, wasn't that different. Usually when we see more extended slow burns, we have lots of layers. They're longer sections to accommodate all the layers that they want to apply on it. And that's not quite what happened here. We ended up seeing a very similar floor in the beginning and end, and the only difference was mostly what was being played over it, what would be the melody or the spotlit passage. That was really the main thing, and the melody is what kept the section really moving forward. And this is where my second question comes in, and I think I asked it during the song as well. Is this a jam song? Or is every single note meticulously memorized and played? Or do they have sheet music? Because there's a lot of parts of this song that don't feel like they would benefit too much from being meticulously composed and performed. And since a lot of these sections, to me at least, seem to be based on a feeling rather than specific musical theory, it would make more sense for each performance to be unique. But I've come to this conclusion on a couple of songs before. Um, None's coming to mind though. I was gonna have an example, and I don't. And I think almost every time that somebody's actually commented and answered that question, it's been meticulously composed and performed. So I suppose my brain says, Bryan, just go with the flow. They probably play every note exactly as they want to. But again, this might be coming from my jazz background. I've said this before. I would really appreciate knowing that this was all or mostly improvised, that they had specific emotions that they were going for, and maybe there were some strictly composed pieces, like some of the repeating elements, but that the more randomly seeming melody parts were uh, improvised, and every show would be a little different based on that. I think that would be awesome. It also makes more sense to me as a composer and a performer to do that. Again, I view this song as more of an emotive type of performance and an emotive type of listening. I don't really think it benefits too much from a meticulously laid out composition. It's more of experimental music, avant garde stuff. If I were to compose this on sheet music, the bass guitar in the second half, the flood currently going on section, and some of the lower guitar parts in the intro section, not the intro, the build up section, would have written down ideas. They have to play these riffs identically. But some of the more melodic elements that have moving lines at the top would have a note, play something that fits this mood. And being that they are the composer and the performer simultaneously, they really can leave themselves that kind of note and know exactly what's going to happen. Like I said, to me, that just makes a lot more sense. It also saves time in composition because there is a lot of chaotic elements in here. And I think it's easier for this type of chaos to come about naturally than to try to construct it artificially, especially in the heavier half. In the final part of it, where the drums cut out and it's just the bass and the lead guitar, and they seem to be on their own time. And I'm going to get into this a little bit. They don't seem to be in time with each other. They're just kind of playing their own thing. And again, to me, it makes a lot more sense to just say, play what you want to. You have your repeating riffs, but you don't have to adhere to any time signature or tempo. You're in free time with this. You're two people, both in your own free time. You don't have to line up. Go for it. Much rather than trying to line everybody up with specific times that are supposed to sound free. Um, but like I said, in the past, I've made these comments and I've been told, nope, it's played the same way every time. And I'm just, wow. Part of it is appreciation for it, because there's a real art in making exceptionally lined up and meticulously placed music sound chaotic and random. There is definitely a strong art to that, of creating chaos from structure. But there's other times when I'm like, man, you're just reinventing the wheel. We can just get into chaos here. We don't need to write like we're chaotic. We just play. Just let the chaos naturally happen. But again, some of that might just come from my idea of working harder No, we're working smarter, not harder, which is something I've talked about previously in spicing up compositions with very simple tricks. And also just my jazz background, really digging improvisational skills. Um, but I think that's all I'm going to add there. Like I said, if you have any comments, let me know. I would really like to hear that a lot of this piece is improvised, but I'm bracing myself to be told that it's very meticulously placed and they perform the same way, the same song all the time. Um, so we have the slow burn, and we have a couple of instruments that have the same repeating idea. We see minor variations on these as we go. The drums slowly add in new instruments. Uh, yeah, new parts of the kit. We develop it past that snare and cymbal. We eventually get a bass kick in there, and then we get some hi-hat hits on every beat. Um, some other ideas that pop up. Uh, and then I think the main part here that I found to be what kept me going is there's two guitars. It's actually three guitars, actually. I think one of them's a bass, though. And then oh no, I think this is the part with three. Yeah, three guitars. We have a center guitar doing a line, a little like 2 beat riff, 3 beat riff. We have a left pan guitar that's clean and was doing some sort of eighth note idea, and then we have a right pan guitar that was doing these chords that was accenting and playing off of the centered guitar and creating a bit of a hocket. You would get the uh, yeah, I guess we could classify this as a hocket. You get the strong chordal hit, and then while that's fading out, you get this little run over it. So you have this little bouncing back and forth as they repeat this riff over and over and over, and then you have this cyclical repeating eighth note line over in the left side. Um, and this builds up and builds up for a bit, and we get to a point where two of the guitars, and I don't remember which ones. I kind of feel like they were both centered, so I don't know if one guitar got pulled center. Um, they just start doing their own thing. There's some counter melody going on, but there's also some elements of harmony. They kind of line up and then do their own thing, and then line back up and then do their own thing, just kind of weaving in and out of this concept. And it seems to go on forever, but it's very linear. And once again, it would be a lot easier just to allow two people to solo here and play off of each other's energy. But I suppose there's a chance that this 4 minute linear counter melody idea is completely composed from start to finish and is meticulously memorized and played. Like, I think that's the other thing that's just bonkers to me. If this is a fully composed piece, start to finish, just how much extremely precise memorization needs to go into this. Um, yeah, it's just like I'm trying to compare it to anything I've done, and a lot of classical and jazz, you don't memorize music. That's more of a modern thing, actually. Yeah. Um, I mean, jazz, you have your jazz standards, so you kind of memorize the A section and the chord progression, so you can solo over it, but there's no memorization to the solo itself. You do memorize a lot of standards, though. That is real nifty. But most of the jazz I've played, I've had sheet music for. Most all of the classical I've played, I've had sheet music for. The only time I think I've really had to memorize music is rock music, which is heavily riff based, which is, well, at least what I played. I was in like a, I don't know what you call it, emo, pop punk, something along those lines. We did covers of AFI and Yellow Card, if that helps kind of put things in perspective. But heavily riff based, so that's easier to package into memory. The most complex thing I did was marching, though. Marching band, you gotta memorize a full, 20-minute show or whatever, the music and the steps, your placement on the field and stuff like that. But it's not like I played all of the time. I had plenty of sections of rests, and of course, with any marching band song, there's going to be a moment in the middle that shows off the drum line a bit. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of downtime where I don't need to memorize the music. But that's only 15-20 minutes tops, I think. I don't think we had a show longer than 20 minutes in the 4 years I did that. And this is 36 minutes of incredibly dense music, more dense than anything I've had to memorize. And granted, this is an entire album, right? Because they did do the 70-ish minute or whatever Damien said studio version. And it makes me wonder, did they memorize the music for that? Did they have sheet music in front of them? Was this all improvised? Like, it keeps coming back to this. This feels so much like it would benefit from improvisation, not just in the simplicity of performance, but also in the variety of the performance and of pulling out the emotive element. Um, I think I got to get off this topic. It seems like no matter what I talk about, I'm going to come back to this. But all right, let's move on. We're at 54 minutes. I'm pretty sure this is quickly going to be my longest video yet. I think 63 minutes was my longest one prior, and I don't see me shutting up in 10 minutes. So we have this section, it builds and builds and builds, and we have this dual melody section that just goes on and on and on, and eventually it just kind of stops. And I was getting a bit curious. It felt like an eternity. I don't want to lie. I've mentioned before that slow burns are not really my jam. There's got to be something real interesting about it that keeps me uh, attentive to the music. And this was probably one of the slowest burns I've listened to. Granted, there was a lot of variety in the melody in that second half. I mentioned it was a linear section. We had counterpoint going on. It was dipping in and out of harmony, so there were things to listen to, but overall, the sound of this part, we had just listened to like 15 minutes of something that sounds very samey with this gradual volume and complexity increase. Um, but to me, it felt like the song should already be over. I don't want that to sound mean. It's just, it was a tough listen for me. Um, so I was like, oh, maybe that was it. You know, I was like, I don't want to check the time. I don't want to come over to YouTube and pull the bar up and see what time it is. I feel like that's kind of cheating it sometimes, and it pulls me out of the song. So I'm like, let's just see where this goes. But I was also thinking, was that the flood? That was obviously the most chaotic point at the time. We definitely had the most elements going on. We had two electric guitars, kind of creating a lot of dissonance and contrast there. Maybe that was it. And then that bass kicks in. Just like this deep rumble. Oh my God. So wild. I think if I walk away from this remembering anything about the music, it's going to be that bass rumble. Just what in the world did they have to do to get that sound? And I'm sure someone in the comments is going to be like, that was an electric guitar. And I'm going to call it a bass though. I'm going to call it a bass for the rest of this video because you can't change my mind on that. Not for now, anyways. I'll obviously accept fact when I hear it, but right now it's a bass. And this is when I knew I was wrong. The song is nowhere near over. This is the flood. Extremely interesting sonically. Just I mentioned it was wall of sound, but everything was intricately placed in the mix. When I wanted to hear the bass, I could. When I wanted to hear any of the guitars, I could. It was wild because everything was coming together for this cohesive, oppressive sound. Yet they were still isolated enough that I could pick them out. Just phenomenal. Some of the wildest production I think I've heard as far as dirty mixes go, where I can really appreciate, obviously on an artistic level, the dirtiness, the grittiness of the mix itself, but there's also elements of clean mixes that I enjoy in it somehow magically. And it blows me away. I can appreciate dirty mixes for what they do. I really love clean mixes. I've never heard one that is both simultaneously and seems to take the benefits of both styles and none of the negatives. It's almost the perfect conjoining of the two. Just it really blew my mind. That bass sounds like a beast. I'm gonna I'm just gonna randomly interject that in whatever I'm saying. Anytime I think about the bass, just golly, there is no bass like that I've heard. Now this section does get repetitive. It does not have any of the variety that we saw in the slower section. In fact, the second half doubles down on the repetition, gets rid of the drums, and says guitar and bass, just keep playing your one bar riff over and over and over. In fact, don't even worry about being in time with the other person. Just keep playing your riff, whatever time signature and tempo you want. And they do that for minutes. It is bonkers. I mentioned at the beginning that as a composer, I cannot sit on a single idea for too long. My brain's always saying, let's get to the next thing. Let's move, I've been trying to fight against that. My composition jam piece for last month, I forced myself to stick within ideas and kind of adopt the post-rock concept of song structure. It went against everything in my being, and I'm still not sure I like what I did. But I did it. I stayed in sections for longer than I felt they were welcome. And so far, I've had some positive comments about it. So I guess I did something right, even if I'm not a big fan. But this pushes my limits. And I mentioned at the beginning, I greatly appreciate their patience. It is something that I do not have. I kind of wish I did. But they can just sit in this concept for minutes upon minutes upon minutes and just really dwell within this atmosphere, this emotion that they've constructed, for better or worse. For me, like I said, it's kind of a worse. I'm just there is quite a few times in this track I was like, okay, let's move on. Add something. I don't care if we change sections, just give me something new to listen to. And I know that's the wrong way to go about it. We've listened to quite a few post-rock, post-metal, slow burn kind of things, and I see it in the comments. Right? I read every comment. Y'all tell me these are not songs to be analyzing. They're songs to close your eyes and feel and to get, involved in spiritually or emotionally, mentally. Just let your body go. I try. I do. Uh and I don't know. I think even if I really allowed myself to just turn off the brain completely, which is so hard to do in front of the camera. If I'm in my chair, I've got my headphones on, just kind of relaxing. I think it's easier for me to do it than when I'm recording in front of camera with the equipment and the green screen and all that. It's a different environment. It's harder for me to do it in. But I think even if I was in a comfortable environment for it, this song would still push my limits as to how long I could reasonably enter that meditative state. Especially the 70-minute version. And it leads, okay, so I think I've touched on everything I want to as far as the repetition, possible improvisation, tones, counterpoint, harmony, free time. I think I've touched on everything here. So I want to wrap this up a little bit. 70 minutes. Damien might have to answer this one. But if anybody else has information as well, I'm all ears. What's the difference between this live version or any of their live versions versus the 70-minute studio one? Is it the same structure? Intro noise, slow build up, heavy flood, haunting, peaceful outro. It's just that they extend them out rather than 15 minutes per section in the middle. Maybe they're 20 in the intro. Instead of it's 6 minutes, it's like 12 or whatever. Do they just extend everything, or did they cut out parts to create this trimmed down live version? And my other question ties into improv because I can't seem to get away from it. If they just shortened the sections, how did they choose what to shorten? Or is it all improv and they said instead of 12 minutes of improv, we're going to do 5? I'm curious about those kind of things. Because I think if the entire song was heavily constructed in a meticulous way and expected to be performed note for note, then cutting out elements would be, one, difficult, and two, could affect the intended outcome of the song. However, if they are all improvisational sections, reducing the time to spend improvising would not reduce the feelings or emotions of the track, and once again, supports my idea that doing this song improvisationally is actually a huge benefit over doing it structurally. Yeah, I think that's it. If I keep talking, I'm just gonna repeat myself. Improv, bass, improv, bass, improv, bass. That's too long. I gotta shove that in there a little bit. So yes, Damien, thank you for this. I much like with Boredom's Circle, I am glad I've had a chance to listen to this. I think it's a fantastic piece, and I enjoy it on an artistic level. I think it's a fantastic way to bring at least a natural event, a natural disaster, into a musical narrative element. I think they did a fantastic job of capturing that. But it definitely was not an easy listen for me, and like I said, I'm not sure I'd want to listen to it again unless it was live. I can see this being a very different experience live, especially when that second half kicks in and that demon bass shows up and you got, stacks of speakers rumbling the venue or whatever, and you can feel the flood in your heart, in your bones. Yeah, that's probably an experience. Anyways, those are my thoughts. Boris's Flood. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this one, if there's anything that stuck out to you. If you're still here, 66 minutes into this video, I greatly appreciate you. I do. I appreciate everybody, but especially the people who are going to let an hour-long video run and listen to me ramble about bass length and improv for 40 minutes past a 40-minute track. I guess not 40 though. 36 is the full length if we had listened to the whole thing. So that would round to 35. Yeah, hit me up comments. I asked a lot of questions. If you have answers to those, all that kind of stuff. Above the comment section is the description box, and there's a link for Linktree. Take you to this menu right here. You can check out Discord community. You can check out my Twitter if you want to follow me there. You can support the channel through Patreon, special selection submissions, or merch. Everything's in there. You can also email me if you're a band and you want me to check out your music. That's in there as well. If you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Those buttons are above the description box. Whew, that is a long video. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. We'll be looking at another... I've completely blanked out on the theme. Oh, Joy Sparkers. We'll be looking at another song that brings some people joy and another special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.